All right, in this video, we are going to be talking all about the IDE, what it is, how to set it up, and how to use it. And so for many of you watching this video, this is probably your first time seeing the video, so you're going to want to watch the entire thing. But for many of you watching this, you might have already seen it before, and you just need to revisit the instructions about how to set it up. So feel free to skip to the part of the video that you need. But again, for most of you watching, let's first talk about what an IDE is. And so the URL that you've probably been to by now is this cs50.dev. What is that? What are we looking at? Essentially, this is CS50's version of Visual Studio Code. And so sometimes it's called VS Code, which is essentially an IDE. What is an IDE? I keep talking about this IDE. An IDE is, well, this is the browser-based version, but if I were to run this on my computer, Visual Studio Code is what you see here. And this is, it stands for Integrated Development Environment. And what that means is that it's an environment, it's a place where you do your development, you do your coding, and all of your tools are integrated, right? So you have your command line down here, you have your file tree over here on the left, so you'll be able to see your files and folders, and then this is your main text editor. And so all these tools are integrated together where you develop your code, and that's your environment. And so again, this is the version on my computer, so I could run this app without internet. It's locally on my computer, and you at some point in life might install this program on your computer. But we're going to run it in the browser because you use a Chromebook and then a MacBook, and you switch computers and where the files live. Instead of living on the computer, they just live, technically this is like an online IDE. So basically this is built on top of GitHub Codespaces. You don't really need to know that, but it's kind of modified by this this largest open online course for computer science at Harvard. So it was kind of built by CS50 at Harvard and their whole team kind of modifying what GitHub Codespaces has done. And so you'll see that come up a little bit later. But anyway, the main directions are going to be here. Take a look at the URL. You might want to memorize this. There's probably a poster for it as well. It is hstatsep.github.io/code50. Okay, so all the instructions are here. We're just going to go ahead and start walking through them. So step 0 is to navigate to your IDE. So you're first going to go to cs50.dev and log in with your GitHub account. So you log in. It might prompt you for permissions, like, hey, do you want to get access for CS50 for your from your GitHub account? Just press yes, accept. If you see that. Now, what's really important is in the step 0, before we can even start setting this up, we have to get to the right place, because by default, it's the URL. I want to pay special attention to the URL. It's going to have some words and some numbers, .github.dev, and then slash. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here, but you'll notice kind of buried towards the end, there is a bunch of numbers. Okay, and if you double click on those, it's going to highlight the numbers. And so I want to show you something. Here in my command line, you'll see those numbers, the 1, 4, 8. You might have different numbers. And here, like if you try to use any git commands, they don't work. They're not running here in this number directory. And so what you have to do to get to the correct directory is to double click on those numbers, which won't select the %sign. So if you tap, you have to then delete and delete. So you just click twice and then you delete twice, which will delete both the numbers and the 2F and also the %sign. So watch closely. If I click or tap, and then I delete, it deletes the 2F numbers and the %sign. And so when I do that, notice that by default it loads me in this workspaces and then slash the numbers. If I now press tap, delete, it will get rid of that in my URL. And now you'll be able to see the correct folders. Eventually, when you have your own folders, you'll be able to see those. But the point is, you're now just in slash workspaces. Think of this as your your root, your home. This is your home base. You always want to be in workspaces. Think of workspaces as your new tilde. Okay, and here's where you'll be able to do git commands. Don't worry about that. But yeah, essentially, you now have you are in the right place as long as you got rid of that %2F with all the numbers, not the workspaces one. You still want the workspaces, but yeah, just click and then delete. Okay, then you'll be in the correct place and you're ready for step 1. So step 1, you just enter your name and your email, and I'm actually going to pause the video really quick. Sorry. Okay, sorry, I had to reset my workspace so that it's ready for all these setup steps. And so when you first open up cs50.dev, it actually will take a long time to build your workspace. For the first time, it's kind of a one-time thing. After that, it'll load a lot faster, and it should look like this, where, you know, these will eventually change the colors. We'll get some folders in here later. But right now, you don't need this. You can choose a theme if you want to. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can customize in here, but for now, I don't really need that. And let's start following the directions. By the way, if you are reading these directions and anything on this written documentation is different from the video that you're watching right now, go by the written directions. I may, at certain times after making this video, update the directions. So go by what that says. I'm not necessarily going to update the video, but we can go ahead and type in our name. So I'll type in Mr. Mueller, but you can type in your first name and your last name, you know, type in whatever email you want, probably your school email, and then you insert it. And then now this is ready for you to copy, and then just put it into your terminal and press enter, or paste into your terminal and press enter. And so now I'm going to paste. You might have to grant permission to paste, and then you press enter. And it's going to do a whole bunch of things and say done. Okay, so once that's done, you're ready for the next step. If you want to, you don't have to do this, but you could always reload your IDE. And once you do that, again, you don't have to do this right now. It'll show up later. But next time you load your IDE is when you will then see the nice colors and a timestamp, and, you know, it'll look a little bit nicer. So what are we going to do next? So then we are going to do step 2. Now, step 2, watch closely. You got to press get a token. And then when we go there, note, you can type anything, expiration, doesn't matter, but you have to make sure you check admin public key and then generate token. And then we're going to copy it using the copy icon. So you get a token. Oh, sorry, let me sign in real quick. Okay, so again, note, you can type anything. You can type the number 1, expiration, honestly doesn't matter. We're going to set this up right now. And then we check admin public key, which will kind of select both read and write. Then you press generate token. It makes a token, and then you copy it. And so the one that I just made is right here. You probably won't have these old ones, these other ones, but you'll just have one, and you press that copy icon. Now that it's copied, you come back here and you paste it in, and then you press insert token. Okay. Once you do that, then you're ready to copy this. When you press the yellow copy button, you can then paste it into your terminal. And when you're all done, you should see something at the end that says, hi, your GitHub username. You've successfully authenticated. GitHub doesn't provide shell access. As long as you see that, you're all good. If not, you might want to redo these steps, ask for help, that kind of thing. Now, a little side note. So when you generate token, you might get an email after a couple of days that says like, oh, your personal access token is going to expire. You can ignore that email. We just use the token to create this, like, it's a handshake agreement between like our IDE and github.com that says like, yes, I can push and pull to and from my account. Now, we're kind of done setting up the IDE for the most part. We're going to do step 3 here in a minute, but the point is we're done setting up our IDE. And if you don't use your IDE for a long period of time, say over the summer, you will probably receive an email warning that your IDE is going to be reset if you don't log in. All you got to do is log in. All you got to do is click the button in the email that, like, you know, opens up your IDE, or just go to cs50.dev and open it up. But if you don't do that, if you don't see the email, if you don't act on it within the 24 hours or 7 days or whatever it is, then you could lose anything that you have in your IDE that you have not yet pushed. So just make sure that as a general, you know, habit, you are, you know, pushing to your repos after you do some work. And that way, even if you lose all your work and you have to reset up your IDE, well, then your repos are already on github.com. You could always reclone them into a new IDE, a new code space. The email will look something like this, okay? But let's go ahead and move on to step 3. For 10th grade, for web design, we're just going to leave this as WD. If you're doing this for 11th grade, JS, 12th grade, APCSA. But then we just copy this and we paste it into our IDE. And so now we have a WD folder. So let's talk a little bit about what the WD folder is and what exactly we're looking at. What did we just do? Well, essentially we just cloned this, this folder, this WD repo. Essentially, you don't have to go here, but essentially what we just did is we cloned this repo that has a bunch of folders and files like ready for you to do some work. And then it turned off Git. So not that you need to understand what this does, but the point is I just gave you a whole bunch of folders in the fastest way possible. What you're going to see here in this WD folder, if you click on it, is those exact same folders. Again, Git is no longer running. If you don't understand what Git does, don't worry about it too much. But the point is, like, you now have some folders that, you know, a lot of them are empty. the main things that we're going to talk about. So first of all, you have the readme.md. This is the exact, you have this in your IDE now, and it's just the folders, the same thing that I'm looking at here. But let me explain what I just gave you. So this classwork folder is probably where you're going to spend most of your time as we make a new assignment or clone something. Most of the assignments that we do are classwork. It's just where you can kind of keep all those things organized, as opposed to any projects that we do. If you don't want them all cluttered with your classwork, you can keep them organized in your projects folder. If you just want to like try out something really quick, Sandbox, think of it like your, JS bin or something where you would want to like test something out and like, I don't, it doesn't really belong anywhere else. Not a classwork, not a project. I just want to like try something really quickly, but like maybe I want to save it here in my IDE, but you wouldn't probably push to anywhere, so it's fine if you lose it. Whereas again, classwork and projects, those are going to be repos that you clone. You clone repos into these folders, and so you're going to be pushing back up to GitHub to save them. Then we have the template file and template folder, and so I'm just going to click on this icon if you want to like see the preview of this README. So we have template file.html. So this is a standalone file that is basically all the starter code that you would need. It's already got things that we're going to use in Unit 3 with Bootstrap, but this is where you would start writing HTML, and if you wanted to, you can write some CSS right there. And anytime you want to just try out making a web page with embedded CSS, you would use template file. But there are times when, and by the way, let's practice. You can follow along if you want to. You don't have to. And so, by the way, I'm in Workspaces right now, so most of the time you're going to CD into the WD folder, and then from there you're probably going to CD into classwork or whatever folder you're in. Right now, from the WD folder, we can let's say that we want to test something out, right? So let me CP. CP is a command that means copy. So I'm actually never gonna really open up this template file unless I wanted to modify it and have like a template is kind of like a cookie cutter. Like I want my cookies to all look the same at first, and then different frosting, so to speak. But I'm gonna copy my template file and make a new copy of it. And so notice that when I press tab, it says, I know you want template capital F. It just doesn't know, right? If I do ls, it doesn't know if I wanted to copy template file or template folder. And so again, let me go ahead and copy template tab template file.html, and then kind of like the move command, it's not going to move it. It's going to like make a copy and then move the copy. So I'm going to move the copy into Sandbox, and then I'm going to give it a new name. Let's call it hello.html. So again, what I just did is I made a copy of template file and put it into hello.html, just, if I want to try things out. And, again, you can type whatever you want here. Cool. I made a copy of the template file. But sometimes you might want to make a copy of the template folder. Now, the template folder is very similar, except it's more of like what you would see on Pitcode or Replit or any other environment where you have these files separated. So you have your index.html, and instead of having embedded CSS, it goes and grabs external CSS from the style.css file. And if you're doing something with JavaScript, you can write it in the script.js. But this is when you would want to copy a whole folder that has all three files kind of working together, or however many you might have an image folder that contains images. This would be good for if you want to make a new project. You could duplicate the template folder. The way that you're going to do that, though, instead of again modifying the template folder, instead of typing here, we can duplicate it, but we have to use this -r flag or option. And so if I copy recursively, repeatedly, this template folder, and again, maybe this is where you're like, I want to make a new project or whatever. Let me call it project 1 or hello project maybe. And then now in my projects folder, notice that I have a new template folder, but I just gave it the name hello project, and it has copies of those 3 files, right? And again, you're not going to really edit your template folder or file. Those are just there for when you want to make a copy of them to try something out. Oftentimes you might start on github.com and clone, so these are just there if you need them. You don't have to use them or fully understand them. Cool. Let's talk a little bit about how you would preview HTML. And so I have, again, this hello.html. So that was in my sandbox. So I'm going to CD into my sandbox. You can really be either in the parent folder of wherever your file is, or you can really just be in the grandparent or anywhere kind of above. And then the command to actually preview HTML at the time of making this video. Maybe there will be something in the future and you can just kind of follow along there. But at the time of making this video, you use http-server. Just go ahead and commit that to memory, http-server. It now says some things and you can then click on this link. Now, clicking on it by itself, like this follow link pops up and it, I don't know, kind of went away. You can always hold command to click or control click if you're on like a Windows or a Chromebook. I think that works. And what it's doing is it's like temporarily running this like server. And notice that I don't have a command line here. But back in the preview, you just pick which file you want to preview, or you might have to go into a folder. And like, there you go. There's the preview of my HTML file. Now again, here I do not have my regular command line because it's temporarily running. And so you can either make a new command line with this plus icon, a new terminal. Right, and so I now have like I'm back in Slack's workspaces, whereas here, if I click on this one, I'm back. Or if you don't want a second command line, a second terminal, you can just press Control-C, and that will interrupt the server. And so now like this probably won't work because my server isn't running, and so I can't preview the HTML. So by the way, you don't have to constantly stop and start it. If I spin my server back up, then I can reload this page. It should work. I might go to a port. And if I want to make a change, let's say that back in my code, I want to make my H1s red. I don't have to like stop and restart my server. I would just go back over here and refresh and it's red. Okay. So that's how you preview your HTML. Oh, sorry. I am kind of all over the place. So I jumped to HTML, which is again, back here on this HStat IDE setup. The previewing of Markdown, you can just click on that magnifying glass. And so you might have seen this in github.dev before. That's how I'm looking at what I am now. So again, anytime you're looking at Markdown and you want to preview it, say for write-ups or blog entries, again, you just click on this magnifying glass double pane window and it opens up, kind of side by side your Markdown and then the result of your Markdown, and that way you can see what it looks like. What else? A couple other things. So if you want to open a file from the terminal, you can just do code space and then the file name. So let's say that I want to open back up press Control-C. Again, here in my sandbox, I have this hello.html. If my hands are already on the keyboard, I don't ever have to like go over here and double click. I can just type in code, hello.html, and it'll open up that file in my editor. That's a little cool trick. Again, you can make a new terminal in a lot of different ways. You can launch one in the top left corner, terminal, new terminal. So if you like lose this terminal completely and you're like, uh-oh, where did it go? The top left corner, these three lines, you can go to terminal, new terminal, and that's how it brings it back up in case you lost your command line. Finally, if you at any point need to reset your code space, every once in a while some weird thing happens and you just need to like reset your entire IDE. If that's the case, if you need to start all over, and just kind of do steps 1, 2, and 3 again, then you just go to github.com/codespaces, and then you find your code space, which will have some name like Fuzzy Planet or something. It's probably the only one that's going to be listed there. I think you might only have one at a time. And then it will probably say owned by code50. And then there's 3 dots, and then you press delete. And then your code space, your IDE will be deleted. And again, this is why it's really important to push to GitHub frequently so that any work that you do in your IDE locally is then kind of backed up on github.com on the remote. Let me pause this while it loads. Okay, and again, you might have to scroll down a little bit. You might see something where you have this like box in the middle, and then over here on the right, bottom right corner, there's the 3 dots, and then you can just press delete. And by pressing delete, you then won't have a code space, so that when you then go to, when you go to cs50.dev again, it'll just put you right back at the very beginning of this video, and you can just do steps 1, 2, and 3, which once you've done steps 1, 2, and 3, it won't take too long. You just do it again, and then you should be up and running in a couple minutes. So I think that is everything. Thank you for watching.